Hey friends, I guess I'm live. Let me just check if everything is working as expected. Just give me a second. I think I came a little early. Just let me see if everything is going good. Okay. Yeah.
Hey friends,
Yeah, I can hear myself. So I think the audio also seems to be good. Just let me know if anybody is facing an issue.
live. Let me just check if
Okay. So I came in a little early because I saw a lot of questions on the comment section, on the chat section. So I thought, anyway, a lot of people are already waiting. So I thought I'll join a little early, maybe 10, 12 minutes early, so that I could answer your questions. So if you have any questions, please post them on the chat window. I've been typing a few answers. So I'll start the live session itself at 7:05. Till 7:05, any questions that you ask in the chat window, I'll try to answer them. Right? So yeah, shoot your questions. Hey, good evening, Sagar. Thanks everyone for joining in. Again, as I just mentioned, I'll be answering a few questions that you post on the chat window. I came a little early because I saw a lot of students already watching and waiting for the session. So I thought I'll answer a few questions before we dive into computer networks itself. I'll start computer networks discussion at sharp 7:05, right? Sounds good. So, okay. Somebody's saying getting demotivated. Akhtar, my suggestion is anyway, all forms of short term motivation are not very useful. The best way to crack gate is with a proper strategy. See, motivation is always short lived. I always wanted to go for a half an hour to 45 minutes run every day. And it's very hard because of my hectic schedule. It's always hard. I'm motivated. My wife, my family, my friends motivate me. But motivation is always short lived. So the solution to that is to have a proper strategy and discipline. Okay, motivation is useless in the long term. Motivation is good for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Beyond that, it's not useful. To be honest with you, what is more useful is a proper strategy and discipline, right? So my suggestion for strategy is try to solve as many problems as possible from previous years, from practice questions, from mock tests. Again, as I've been mentioning in almost every live session, whatever mistakes you have done in the tests, make a note of it. Whatever questions you could not answer, make a note of it, go back, revise, and take a shot at those questions again. That's your question practice strategy. And revise. We have provided notes for almost all the major subjects. A couple of subjects we are still writing notes. It's available to all the students, not just the registered students. Revise from those notes as fast as you can. So revision and practice, that's the strategy. The discipline is try to spend at least 5 hours a day on gate preparation because we just have 75 days. Motivation is useless, okay? To be honest with you, again, I've seen this myself. I was motivated for 1 day, 2 days later, the motivation goes down the dustbin, right? Motivation is not useful. A disciplined strategy is what is more sensible and useful for the next 75 days, right? So don't worry about motivation. Have a strategy. Your strategy should be to practice as many questions as possible. Every mistake you're making, make a note of it, make it part of your revision strategy. And every question that you have not been able to answer, go back to your notes, go back to the textbook, go back to the course videos, understand why you could not solve that question and try to improve constantly. You have only 75 to 80 days now as you're nearing the exam, right? So 75 days, try to solve at least 1,000 to 2,000 questions and revise all the subjects. We gave you a revision plan I think a couple of sessions back, we gave you a revision plan, right? So disciplined strategy is more important than some motivational speech. It doesn't help, trust me. Okay, so probability notes. I thought, let me see if probability notes is already uploaded. We have been writing notes, so let me just go here. So if you go to gate.appliedcourse.com, we have in the resources, you have complete notes for GATE CS subjects. So let me see, discrete mathematics, engineering, combinatorics, and I think we are still writing that. So whatever subject we are just finishing, we are uploading it. We'll upload probability. I think we have a couple of more subjects we have to upload. Computer networks, operating systems, digital logic design. Rest of all of like C programming, data structures, algorithms, TOC, CD, CO, discrete maths, a lot of engineering maths is already uploaded. I think there are a couple of topics or have we covered it in counting and combinatorics. So I'll just see. I think probability is still to be uploaded. I think the team is still writing those notes. As soon as they have it ready, they'll upload it, right? Yeah. CN is completed like I think almost like 4 or 5 days back, right? I uploaded all the contents of CN long back. There was one video that one student suggested that we may have missed. So I added it, I think, a couple of days back, right? This is about circuit switching. So I didn't clearly cover it, but packet switching was covered in lots of detail. I didn't mention clearly what circuit switching was and what message switching was. So I added a short video explaining what is circuit switching, what is the mathematics related to it, I think a couple of days back. So everything is covered. Yes, everything is covered. So yeah, I'm just adding. So if there is any small concept that is missing, or if there is any small error in the videos, I'm fixing them right now. And that's what we are doing right now. And we are writing notes, preparing. Again, a lot of our time today goes into designing the practice, the tests that we have now, right? Mock tests, all tests, we're designing questions. That's where most of our energies are going into. Sounds good? Okay. Hey, I'm happy that notes are useful for some of you. Okay. So where were we? So the test series, we have made it more or less at gate level. We have not made it harder. The practice questions that we have in the course are slightly harder than gate, but the test series itself is more or less at the gate level itself. We have tried to avoid going too harder than gate. We've tried to maintain that gate level, especially what we have seen in the last 4 to 5 years, right? Again, if you notice in the last four to 5 years, the gate questions haven't been hard. They have been tricky, right? They have never been hard. That's why toppers are comfortably getting 80 marks, 85, 80 to somewhere around 80 marks for the last few years. So the questions are not hard. They're just tricky. You can make lots of silly mistakes there. Again, guys, that's what I've just told a while ago. Motivation is not important. Disciplined strategy is. Okay, very, very important. I'll tell that little later also when we start the live session. So somebody's asking about Tenenbaum versus Farhausen versus Kuros. Any book is all right. Don't worry. Pick one book, stick to that book, go through it. All these good books are good, to be honest with you. I've read multiple topics from all the 3 books. I've also used Wikipedia extensively. Again, as most of you know, my course videos are typically based on Wikipedia content because the animations are better and things like that. And it's more up to date, right? But you can pick any book, Tenenbaum, Farhausen, Kuros. All these books are good. Pick any one book, go through it. Again, the biggest challenge in computer networks, I'll come to that little while later anyway, when we dive into the session. Anupam says, I have time issue and I don't have time bound, can solve more questions even with good accuracy. Given test series, how to overcome this problem? Anupam, very good problem. So again, I'm really curious. So in the GATE exam, your objective is not to solve all the questions. So don't fall into the trap of trying to solve all the questions. Your most important thing should be whatever questions you're solving, solve them correctly. That's your strategy. I think you're falling into the trap that you're falling prey to that time stress and you're falling for it, right? Most gate questions, you can solve them in, if it's a 1 mark question, you can comfortably solve it in under 2 minutes. If it's a 2 mark question, you can comfortably solve it in 4 minutes. Again, try to eliminate options because that will speed up your questions a lot. As we have shown in a lot of our course videos where we have solved previous year questions, I try to always eliminate questions because that's a faster way, right? Even if I cannot solve the problem, I can make a good guess if I'm left with 2 out of 4 options. So I think the time issue you're running into because you're stressed to try to answer all the questions. Your job is not to answer all the questions. Try to answer as many questions as possible, as correctly as possible. Just take the time stress away, try to solve as many questions as possible and let's see the results. Guys, please remember that once in a while everybody messes up an exam. Okay, happens all the time. Just get over it. That's why I'm saying, right? One bad exam should not demotivate you. One live session from me should not motivate you or demotivate you, right? What is important is a proper disciplined strategy. Okay, you have not done well in an exam, go through each question that you have missed, and as I keep telling you, right, understand why you made a mistake. Was it a silly mistake? If it's a silly mistake, in your notes, let's say you made a silly mistake in computer networks, make a note of that so that next time when you're revising, you revise the mistake that you have done so that you don't repeat it. Number 1. If it's a conceptual problem, which means you don't know that concept, go back, read that notes or go back, see that video where the concept was described and you're not able to solve it. Again, we have tons of practice questions. Go solve practice questions corresponding to that thing, right? That's the strategy which is more important. Motivation is short-lived, to be honest. Again, somebody is asking about getting stuck in a problem. If you're stuck in a problem, don't waste time. because some questions in GATE are designed to be hard and tricky. Like even if you take 2019, 2018 question papers, there will be like some 5 to 8 marks which are hard, which are genuinely hard. Don't get stuck in a problem. Leave it. Whatever options, see if you're able to eliminate, if you're able to eliminate 2 options out of 4 options, make an educated guess. That's sensible, right? Because 2 options, your probability of success is 50%, while negative marking will still hurt you, but with a lesser chance, right? So my suggestion here is don't get stuck in a problem. That's very, 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 very important with GATE, because one question could be hard. If you're stuck with it, you're losing marks. Your objective is to maximize your marks, not to solve questions in the given order. So please don't get stuck there. Sorry, let me fix my mic. Sorry, my mic came off. Sorry, yeah. If I start a new subject, is it possible to complete? So still 3 subjects left. How to start and revise? Again, that's a very good question. Actually, we did a live, I think a couple of months back. Just go through our previous lives where we discussed what is the order in which you should study. Which subjects are more scoring, which subjects are easy, which subjects are hard. So amongst the 3 subjects that you have left, right, try to pick those subjects that are easiest and that are most scoring. To be honest with you, when I prepared for GATE in my BTech 3rd year, in our days, we could take the GATE exam in our 3rd year also. I completely skipped CN. Okay, because computer networks was in my 4th year syllabus at university during my undergraduate studies, and I just didn't have time, right? In 3rd year, I was preparing for whole GATE and I just didn't have time to cover CN. I just completely left that subject. I went through some easy topics that are very scoring, a couple of topics, right? I think I went through IP addresses, simple stuff, subnet masking type of questions. I left everything else. I went to the exam. I did all the other subjects well. I think I solved only 1 question in computer networks, and that too I think I made a mistake, but still I got a pretty good rank that year. I got 176 in my 3rd year, right? So it's okay. If you don't have time, it is better. You might have to leave some topics or maybe 1 subject you can leave. But again, which subject to leave amongst the 3 subjects you have to make a very informed choice. We did a live session on which subjects are easy, which subjects are scoring, what is the weightage for each subject. Just go through that live. You'll be able to make that decision. Okay. So applied test, I would say if you're scoring 50 plus, that's a good sign because you're still 75 days away from the exam. But I think toppers would comfortably score around 70s, 70 to 80. I think it is fairly doable for toppers because we have done these mock tests last year also. We saw that people who ended up becoming toppers were getting about, again, depending, some tests were harder than others, right? So they would get like 65, 70, 75, right? That's the range that we saw people getting. This time we made the exams to be very much at the GATE level, right? So my suggestion here is 50 plus you should try and absolutely get because you still have time before the exam. But as you're nearing the exam, if you want to be in the top 100 ranks or so, you should try for in the 70s, right? The like 75 plus is better, but even early 70s is good. Again, some tests will be slightly harder than others. Let's be realistic there. Okay, sounds good. So Mrinmoy, we are writing the notes for Aptitude also. We'll give all of that in the Aptitude notes as you have suggested, right? We have still 3 more minutes before I start the live session. As I promised you earlier, I'll start the session at 7:05 for computer networks. I'll try and answer a couple of more questions. Sorry, what should be a good number of attempts in the exam to be in the top 100 out of 65? I didn't understand the question. No, if you are stuck in a question and if you think you cannot solve it in like 2 to 3 minutes, please move on, right? Please move on. Don't get stuck because that will hurt your mindset. If you're stuck with a problem, it will hurt all the other questions that come after that, right? Don't get stuck. Make a note of that question. You can always come back and answer it. If you can eliminate choices, make an educated guess, or else just leave it. Again, look at this. Within all the questions that you have, right? Lot of easy questions are spread across the whole paper, right? Easy questions are not grouped at the starting or hard questions are not grouped at the end, right? So first try to solve all the easy questions. You can always come back to the really hard or the tricky questions later on, right? So, okay. Hey, thank you. So CN we tried to teach using, because when I learned computer networks in my BTech 4th year, I learned it using this Wireshark tool. I really enjoyed because I could actually see the packets. I could actually see a TCP packet or a UDP packet or a DNS packet or a DHCP packet actually traveling on my network to my ISP router. That's how I really got the practical aspects of how things are working. And I tried to do that even in our course, where I tried to do it very applied, showing you actual packets that are traveling on my Wi-Fi network as we were discussing, right? Again, somebody is asking, I learned C but not able to solve 100% of the questions. Please don't try to solve 100% of the questions. Most people will not be able to solve 100% of the questions of any subject, because in any subject there will be one hard or tricky question. So again, to get good rank in GATE, you have like 12 subjects. Try to solve the easy or medium questions across all the subjects. You will get a pretty decent rank, if not the best rank, right? You can get it. So don't try to solve 100% of the questions. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Please don't get stuck at a problem. There will be one odd C question which will be hard, right? Which will even take, if I have to solve it, I could take like 6 to 8 minutes, which is a waste of time. In that period of time, I could solve like 2 or 3 other simpler problems and get more marks. All tricky questions, always keep them to the end when you're designing the examination strategy of actually writing the exam. Okay, don't get stuck, please. That's very, very important. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so it's already 7:05, so I'll get started with today's live session. I've already placed. Okay, so let me share. Okay, before I go there, very, very importantly, one very important thing that I wanted to tell you. Okay, let's get into computer networks, then we'll go there, right? So let me shift this. Okay, everybody can hear this, right? So I've already, okay, I'll talk about motivation versus discipline and strategy a little later. I already talked about it briefly earlier, but let's get into computer networks itself, right? I've already shared this in the description section. If you go here, if you go into the live session, you'll see the notes here, right? This notes here will take you to this sheet. You'll have access to this sheet even after this live session, right? Look at this. We have taken the last 5 years multiple question papers. If you notice, some years have multiple question papers, and by layer or by chapter, we broke this down, right? Again, we have topic level breakdown also with important topics. I'll come there, right? First and foremost, physical layer is very simple. Often you don't get many questions from this, or some question could be mixed with data link layer. Data link layer is very scoring, right? Data link layer, you will get 2.5 marks on an average. So if you look at it on an average, you'll get about 8 marks in GATE from computer networks. Again, some people may feel that for 8 marks, there is so much of content to create. There is so many things to remember. There is so much of details. There is so much of packet formats, frame formats, right? Datagram packet formats that I have to remember. But this 8, again, remember, computer networks, questions are easy. The syllabus is vast. This is one of the biggest challenges with computer networks. The questions are often fairly easy. There might be one odd question which is hard. But in general, computer networks questions are easy, right? But they might be slightly time taking in some instances where there is a lot of calculation in some instances. But the number of marks you get is 8 marks. The syllabus is vast, right? The syllabus is quite vast for the marks that you get here. But it's a trade-off. Some of you may be, again, I strongly recommend you, if you are planning for a top 100 rank, please don't skip computer networks, because it is easier on the scoring front, because the questions are easy. Like, I think I have solved most of the questions in the last 5 years, and most of the questions are actually easy, right? So data link layer will get you roughly about 2.5 marks. Again, network layer, data link layer is where most of the marks typically come from. If you look at the average marks over the last 12 question papers, if I'm not wrong, these are like 12 question papers across the last 5 years. Almost like 5 marks out of 8 marks will come from data link layer, network layer. So if you have to pick 1 or 2 topics in computer networks and focus on this. These are the 2 most important topics. And of course, if time permits, the other very easy topic is security. Very small topic. You just have your RSA algorithm, Diffie-Hellman key exchange, right? Some simple private key, public key, very simple concepts. Again, security, you can, again, there are some years where there are no questions, but more recently you're getting some marks from this. The contents here is very small. The network security is like, there are very few concepts here, but you can easily get 1 mark here. Transport layer, there are a lot of concepts here. Sometimes you get too many marks. Sometimes you don't get any marks here. But on an average, you'll get about 1.5 marks. There are some questions which are mixed, right? They could mix a question from, let's say, application layer to transport layer and all of that stuff. Again, application layer also, many years there are no questions at all, right? So if you don't have time, my suggestion here is to focus on data link layer and network layer followed by security. That will get you about 6 out of 8 marks. Again, these are averages. It might so happen that this year they just get, like in 2018, right? They gave 4 out of 7 marks from transport layer alone, right? That's where you get little unlucky. But the most important topics from a mark distribution perspective are data link layer, network layer, and security. Of course, there are some marks from transport layer, application layer, and mixed questions also, but these are the most scoring because they're easy, right? Now let's go into topic wise. Okay, physical layer, not many questions because as I told you, physical layer, explicitly physical layer questions, there aren't many. But if you look at data link layer from flow control, okay, from flow control, these are the 3 most important topics. Stop and wait, go back, and selective repeat. We have solved tons of problems in the course videos on this, right? From this topic, you can expect a question almost every year. Look at this, almost every year, almost, except for a few exceptions. This is the most important topic within data link layer, right? Within data link layer, this is the most important topic because very often you get questions from this. REST questions, you can't control them. They can come from any of these topics, from MAC protocols, LAN technologies, sometimes from error detection, sometimes from LAN devices. Like from 2019, you got a question from LAN devices, right? So you can't control that. But within, again, these are all the important topics. For every, like from flow control, we have listed down the topics from which most questions come from, right? So if you're short on time or if you want to focus your revision, these are the topics that you should focus on. And all this have been analyzed. All this has been created by analyzing these last 12 years of, these last 12 question papers from the last 5 years. Assuming that the 2020 paper also will be very similar to this, you can expect, again, from these concepts, right? From MAC protocols to LAN devices, there is no consistency. From flow control, this is the most often asked questions within data link layer. Now, if you come to network layer, right, the questions can be fairly like switching, right? Not switching, sorry, from fragmentation. Fragmentation is one topic from which you typically tend to get more questions. Fragmentation and IP addressing. In IP addressing, you have like subnetting, supernetting, classful addressing, those concepts, right? This is one topic where there's a very high chance from network layer, IP addressing and fragmentation are the topics from which you get most questions historically. That doesn't mean that you may not get questions from other topics, but if you have to pick 2 subtopics, these are the most important subtopics: fragmentation and IP addressing. IP addressing, you typically, again, there are some years where there were no questions in IP addressing, but in general, there are historically a lot of questions from subnetting, supernetting, also from fragmentation, like what is the fragment number, right? What will be the more fragment bit, will it be set or not? All of this, maximum transmission unit concept. These are the concepts. Again, this is already shared with all of you in the description section of the video that you're watching now. So you can go back and look at all of this. I'm just giving you a high level overview now. Now, when it comes to transport layer, again, the questions are all around the place, but congestion control is one topic from which historically you've gotten more marks. Look at this. Amongst all these question papers, 7 out of all these marks came from congestion control, right? Again, congestion control is simple. It's not very hard, right? So congestion control is something that you can easily score marks in. Application layer is one tricky part. Okay, this was even challenging when we were creating the course content, because most of the questions that came from application layer were like multiple questions from multiple protocols. So this will be like, you'll be given a question and you'll say, does HTTP have this? Does SMTP have this? Does POP3 have it? Does DHCP have it? Right? So most questions are not specific to one protocol or one set of protocols. So application layer protocols, there are very few protocols actually. And you don't have to go in depth into how SMTP works or POP3 works. Most of the questions in application layer are easy, but most of them are mixed questions from all of these protocols which are there in the course videos, right? Then network security, cryptography, especially your symmetric key, or especially if you have Diffie-Hellman key exchange, RSA algorithm, you typically tend to get more marks from this topic. Look at this. If you look at any one topic, look at this. In all these question papers, flow control has the most marks, 15 marks, right? After flow control, you have cryptography, especially your Diffie-Hellman key exchange, your RSA. Extremely scoring. These questions are super simple. Okay, I've solved questions from the last 5 years. Like cryptography questions are the easiest, right? And actually flow control questions are also very easy if you know these three protocols. So this total marks could be a guiding principle on what topics you should focus on or what subtopics you should focus on, right? I hope this is useful for everyone, right? Again, this has been done. The whole team actually sat for days analyzing each and every question in these 12 question papers and made this deeper analysis. And if you are serious about getting a good rank, please don't skip computer networks, because computer networks, while the content is huge, right, there are so many details that you have to remember, that you have to understand with respect to computer networks. But if you understand them, scoring marks is easy, because questions are typically very easy. Again, I mentioned this in the course videos also. Most of the mathematical questions or numerical questions that you encounter in computer networks are high school mathematics. It's literally high school mathematics, like time distance type problems that you have to solve, right? So the mathematical questions are very simple. They're more like aptitude questions. If you know the theory of computer networks, if you know what these protocols are, what these techniques are, they're simply aptitude problems. That's why they're very scoring, right? One other very important thing that I wanted to tell you, again, I've seen this, students have called us, students have asked us about it. Even in the chat window, people have been telling me this, that I'm losing motivation. Folks, please understand this fact. Short-term motivation is less important than strategy followed with discipline. My suggestion to all of you is stop. Again, what happens with motivation? You're motivated for 2 days, third day, again, you become lazy. So don't wait for somebody to motivate you. Have a proper strategy and discipline. My suggestion for strategy for the next 75 days is solve as many problems as you can. Every problem that you could not solve, go back, read the theory. Every problem where you have made a mistake, make a note of it in your revision notes. We have provided notes for everyone, so please go revise these notes as often as possible. I recommend at least doing 2 revisions from now to the day of exam. And please be extremely disciplined. Try to at least block 5 hours every day and cater it to GATE. You follow these 2 principles, you don't require motivation. This is what will get you a GATE rank, not some fancy speech or not some fancy motivational talk from somebody. This is what will get you a GATE rank. Please understand that fact. Okay, 5 hours, say every day morning 2.5 hours I'm spending, this 2.5 hours, this 2.5 hours, and go with it. Okay, please understand this fact. Everybody gets demotivated. Everybody has a bad day. I have so many bad days myself. Okay, bad days should not stop you from being disciplined. Bad days should not disrupt your strategy. Even on a bad day, you have to do your work. Keep moving forward, right? That's more important. Okay, so I hope this live session is useful to all of you. Again, if there are some questions, since I've finished the analysis for this, if anybody has questions, I could answer a few questions here. I'm already on the live chat window. I'm looking at the live chat window. So somebody is asking, can we do it for other subjects? We have done it for a few other subjects, but I'll try to do almost all the subjects in the next few weeks. Okay, I'll try to do 1 or 2 of these subjects every week. I think we have done it for already other subjects. We'll continue doing it for every subject. Okay, so we'll finish that hopefully by, let's say this is November, mid-November, right? We'll try to finish it by late November, early December. Every subject you'll get similar deep analysis. Okay, that's something that we give it to you as a as a way for you to plan your preparation better. Again, somebody says LAN devices is there in CN syllabus. Yes. So LAN devices is there because we saw some questions on bridge, switch, etc. Especially in the 2019 question paper, I think if you remember, okay, LAN devices, we saw a question in 2019. We didn't see questions in the previous years, but we saw in 2019. That's why even when we were creating the course notes, we added that in the course videos also. Yeah, so we can do a playlist of these videos. We'll surely do that. Sorry, somebody is saying I'm facing problem in understanding the language of question in mathematics. When I look at the solution, I find the question is pretty easy. Yeah, that's a problem, especially for non-native English speakers. Especially there are some topics in mathematics, especially like, let's say, proposition and predicate logic, where the question can be very, very tricky, right? So the only way that I can think of to solve that problem is to look at more questions from mathematics. Look at all the last 20-year questions and try to spend more time, okay, as part of your revision strategy, right? You know all the math equations. Try to go through the questions and try to understand the question very well. Right? This is a very common problem, especially for many of us for whom, or most of us, for whom English is not a mother tongue, right? So, except for a few people here and there in India, like in some parts of Goa or Mizoram, for most of us, English is not a mother tongue. So, it's hard. I understand that. Okay. It's very, very common for people to get confused, especially if the question is framed slightly tricky. That happens all the time. My suggestion for you is look at the last 20, because maths is very, very scoring. Okay. I discussed this last time also. In the last live session, I talked about engineering and discrete maths. Very easy to score, right? So it's good for you to go and look at the last 20-year questions, try to decipher the questions. Okay. Token ring, we covered it as part of the course videos because not sure if somebody, again, the problem with computer networks is if you pick up Tenenbaum, Kuros, Ferozen, any book, right? The book is vast. There are so many protocols, so many details. So it's very hard to actually condense everything to the GATE syllabus. So we tried to be on the safer side and we covered token ring also. Even though it's not clearly stated per se, we thought it's better to just cover it in case, worst case, if somebody asks a question. Right, so we did cover it in the course videos. So as far as IPv6 and Wi-Fi are concerned, there haven't been a lot of questions. There have been some very basic questions on these concepts, but understand the protocol, understand the packet format, especially IPv6. Understand the packet format. Understand what is each of the pieces of the packet format. I think that should be good enough. Again, we can never say. The examiner can ask a very advanced question, and again, this happens a lot in computer networks, okay? Which is you prepare expecting something based on previous year questions, and you get an like bouncer question or an outlier question, as we call it in machine learning, right? You get like if somebody asks some very, very detailed question about, let's say, IPv6 or Wi-Fi, and you have not learnt it. Most people can't answer that question, not just you, right? Look at this. You're not competing against the examination paper. You're competing against your peers. Your other exam takers, right? So if you cannot answer, again, prepare the basics of IPv6 packet format, what is each of the pieces of the packet mean, all of that stuff. Even with Wi-Fi, right? With Wi-Fi, I think you should understand collision avoidance, all these concepts in more depth. But to be honest with you, there could be one bouncer question, and I've seen a lot of bouncer questions in computer networks. Because look at IPv6 as a protocol, right? There's a whole book on IPv6 from Cisco Press. Right, I was like, when I was preparing notes, and when the whole team and I were preparing notes and doing these videos, we're like, how deep should we go, right? We had to make a trade-off. Otherwise, computer networks would have been a 100-hour course in itself, right? We made a trade-off based on the last 20 years of questions. But this year they might give a bouncer question. So such questions most people can't answer. So it's okay. Skip those. Okay, sounds good. So my suggestion is, somebody is asking about preparation. My suggestion is go through the subject once, have the notes, revise the notes, practice, right? You have to go through the whole subject once. Otherwise, how can you solve problems, right? It's a trade-off between, so my suggestion here is you learn, suppose you've already finished computer networks once. Take the notes that you have written or that we'll shortly provide. Go through all the key concepts, go through the whole concepts, then start your practice session, right? So you have done one revision, practice. Any question that you cannot solve or any concept that you are not sure, go back, revise. Any question where you are making a silly mistake, make a note of it in your notes. So that next revision, you know what silly mistakes not to make, right? That's the strategy. That's the broad scheme, right? Okay, sounds good. Again, somebody says, I'm finding it difficult to remember CN concepts. What can I do? That happens. The syllabus of CN is vast. The way I do it, the way I can easily remember these concepts is, I try to connect them to real world stuff. That's why most of our course videos are taught from a slightly applied or a realistic or practical perspective. Because by connecting concepts to real world, you can remember these details more. For example, I clearly explain when I discuss about UDP, TCP. Again, I try to do it for most concepts that we have. Again, some concepts it's very hard to show you the practical aspect because if it's happening in a router somewhere, right, or at an ISP, I don't have an ISP to show you, right? But for example, any concept that you remember, or if you're remembering, let's say IPv6 packet format or IPv4 packet format, if you understand why each of these components are there, number one, and the actual application of it, it becomes much easier for you to remember. I completely understand because of the vastness of GATE syllabus, it's very, very easy to forget it. So one, connect it to some real world examples and always ask this question, why is this concept there in the first place? That's one strategy in remembering the concepts better. Obviously, you will also have access to our notes. Revise. GATE is a challenge not of the hardness of problems, but of the vastness of syllabus. Right? This is the biggest challenge of GATE. Where, unlike IIT, JEE or CAT, right? CAT, the syllabus is small. The problems are hard. Even aptitude problems in CAT are super duper hard, right? The verbal questions or any question in CAT is hard. In general, they are hard. GATE questions are easy, but the syllabus is vast. And you have to prepare for that ideology. I've completed all the technical subjects and math. What should be the strategy for the next 2 months? Because I have semester exams. Practice. I told you simple strategy, right? Simple strategy, solve as many mock tests, as many practice tests, as many previous year questions as possible. Revise, practice. That should be the mantra for the next 75 days. I understand if you have semester exams, it's perfectly okay. Take a break during those days, but compensate for that break after the exams are over, right? So somebody already has handwritten notes. If you have written your own notes, there is nothing that beats that, to be honest with you. There is nothing, because you have written those notes, right? So your own notes are always going to be better than any other's notes. If you have your own notes that you have written thoroughly, please follow them. I strongly recommend. But if you have time, just go through our notes so that in case you missed something, you can make note of that, right? But if you have not made your notes, our notes is a very good starting point for you, right? Sounds good, guys. Okay. All the very best and see you again. As I promised you, we'll do this for almost every subject in GATE thoroughly, just like the way we have done it for CN. And all the best with your preparation. Remember, short-term motivation is not important. It is your strategy and discipline that is more important. That's what will get you GATE ranks. Okay, see you then. Bye-bye.